Everybody got a seat? Again, if you have any empty chairs at your table, hold up your hand so that some of the people coming in the back will find a place to sit. But since it is a little bit after 7, I want to go ahead and get started so that when you buy your tickets to leave. All right, well, good evening. My name is Donna Smith, and this is Richard Santiago. Thank you for coming tonight. Like I said, we only prayed for a couple of people, so I'm glad you all heard us. On the 28th, I received a letter discussing a potential quarry on the Crunkleton property. Richard, the author, confirmed to us that he and his neighbors on Brookstone Drive had seen a vendor taking core mining samples, the clearing of trees, and surveyors on the 499-acre plot. My husband Dennis, with others, had wondered about the aerial photographer over the area. Richard also shared that he called the Stevens County Commissioner's office and, yes, he was told, meetings were underway and scheduled with Heidelberg on their pending purchase and the potential rezoning request. After learning of Heidelberg's private marketing meetings with the county commissioners and the county administrator and their detailed discussions regarding their purchase of the Crunkleton property, we created our Facebook page to share the impact of a quarry in the heart of our community. We have received many calls, texts, and messages from our neighbors in Stevens and the surrounding counties expressing their concern and outrage. I also received calls from Stevens County commissioners and a member of the Planning and Zoning Board. They all told me this: it isn't a good time to get all worked up, and it's too early to be concerned. And also, it's a bit premature to talk this way. And the commission will need to hear more information before we make a decision. A few things came to be during and after this call. Should we be concerned after we see those small yellow signs posting the date of a rezoning meeting that we don't have time to prepare for or communicate to others? Should we be upset after they bulldoze all the trees and ground cover? Is it premature to repair the cracks and foundation damage to our devalued homes, local roads, and historic bridges during the continuous blasting? Is it premature to be worried about the identity of the buyer, Heidelberg, given their impact on communities all around the world and all the lawsuits they are involved in? How about some info on the poisonous silica dust that will spread in a 5 to 7 mile circular radius from the 499-acre quarry site? Consider the outdoor pool on Doyle Street, the 2 summer camps, the 3 schools, and many child care facilities within that radius. How about our outdoor playgrounds, tennis courts, baseball fields, and walking trails at this recreation center? Think about what our grandchildren and children will be inhaling while they're playing and practicing sports outside. And please don't forget about all of our senior neighbors who meet here almost daily at this center. Maybe the best time to get all worked up is after Lake Hartwell and Tougaloo are contaminated by the quarry's runoff into Ward's Creek. Why would our county commissioners and the county administrator even take a meeting with the company to discuss a rock quarry in the residential center of our community and so close to Lake Hartwell? So before I hand the floor over to Richard, a few things about this meeting. This meeting is not about who knew what when, contacting the State Ethics Commission, calling lawyers, or submitting FOIA requests for for emails and material from Heidelberg? Not yet. You keep hearing and reading the phrase, "We have not received a zoning request on this property." And we say, not yet. Finally, please remember this meeting is not about criticizing anyone personally in our local media, the real estate industry, or the Stevens County government. This meeting is for us to review the next steps in the zoning approval process, including the hearings and studies required before any rezoning could be considered, and for you to be heard by our county commissioners. And because we have a lot of important information to share with you, please hold your comments and questions until the meeting is ended, and speak to us afterwards. There will be copies of the letter that started it all, and other info sheets, and a petition available for you to sign after this meeting. And please remember, we need your help. Thank you.
Thank
Evening. I'm Richard Santiago. I really appreciate y'all coming and showing your interest to protect your home county. And so I'm going to start this slideshow, just briefly kind of orient you on what we know to date about the property. We don't know everything because we haven't been able to talk to anybody about it, but there's some obvious things we know. And then I'm going to go over our campaign, our objective, how we want to conduct ourselves, how we want y'all to conduct yourselves. We'll look at some actions that's been already completed. We'll discuss some of the county commissioners' actions to date. We'll go through a notional rezoning for if an applicant went in for, say, an acre next to you. They all go through the same process. Just for an education, we'll just walk you through it, and you'll kind of know what to expect. At the end, we're going to ask for some volunteers, because right now it's only Donna and myself and a few people helping. We're just getting started. We have a very basic Facebook site just to put some information out. But we'd like to expand it and provide more information to y'all. And then we'll ask for some help in those technical areas and non-technical areas, and then we'll take some questions. We're going to try to get this relatively fast, so folks that need to get home in the dark, can at least head out, or we'll catch back up. But first, I'd like to introduce my wife. This is my wife, Becky. She's trying to organize my better sometimes you might not get me, she'll answer the phone. And so we're getting ready to start. I apologize for the not having this bigger or higher, but please stand up if you see something of interest, or walk up and we'll hold it so people can look at it. But I would like to, can you hear me okay with this?
Use the microphone up to your mouth so we can hear.
Can you hear now? A lot better.
And don't knock it on the podium.
Yeah, how about here?
No.
Higher?
There you go.
Okay. I'm not used to a microphone. Okay. Well, first of all, this is just our local meeting, and I'd like just to open it with a quick prayer, and then we'll start our business. If y'all please bow your head and said, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to get together and as a community to answer some questions, get some information to help us make these decisions and help our leaders make the right decision. We ask that everybody keep an open mind and keep an even spirit and no meanness, and all this in your name we pray. Amen. All right, so this is our agenda. We've gone through our introduction. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. There it works. Our campaign objective is to have the county commissioners deny the request to rezone the Crunkleton property from agricultural intensive to any category, conditional or not, that allows a quarry. So we're all here because we heard about the quarry, but the vehicle to have the quarry is to get this property rezoned from agricultural residential, intensive residential. They have to go to the right category, which would be, I believe, commercial intensive. And that category would, or the correct category would allow them to put a rock quarry here. And the conduct of our little short campaign is we want to conduct ourselves in a fair, reasonable manner with the applicant. The applicant's probably the representatives for the Crunkleton property. And we want to be fair with our county commissioners, their staff. And here's like a couple examples that I ask you to not do, is if you had a bad experience in the past with planning commission or the county commission and it didn't go your way, that you not use this kind of to grind the axe for your bad feelings or your bad conduct with somebody in the past. And so in any time that you talk to people, don't be rude. You can be direct, but please don't be rude. And don't make unfounded accusations. And I've seen a bunch of them already, like the one that is like, well, they're getting, somebody's getting a lot of money kicked back or something, because we don't know any of that's taking place. And it doesn't help when we start kind of getting off. The objective is to get this thing rezoned. So how we're going to conduct our communication, right now we have a Facebook page. It's kind of basic. We're hoping to get a website real soon, and the website we are copying from Paulding County that just went through this last year. It's very user-friendly. It gives you an opportunity to sign a petition. It gives you an opportunity to open a tab and print a letter of talking points or flyers or whatever you can do. So we're hoping to get some help putting that together. That'll be a good vehicle between the Facebook page and that you'll be able to stay abreast. We're going to ask for some folks volunteer to write a weekly letter. We want to put a letter to the editor once a week just to show the interest. And there's a 500-word generally guideline to stay below. You could make it 200. You can make it 100. Just write something from your heart, put it out there so everybody can see it, our leaders can see it, and they'll keep getting feedback. Well, when the time comes for these public meetings, we're going to hopefully get some more. The radio station did a really good job. They just started broadcasting this meeting, and it was very helpful. So we'll hope they'll do that in the future. And we'll also put some handouts and notices on mailboxes. We'll hopefully get some signage. We had a homemade sign put out front, but we're going to try to put those in some key intersections. And then also a big one is that everyone here talk within their circle of influence. Your family, your friends, just wherever you're at, just your street and stuff like that, and that will just help. We had you received a little list of talking points, and those are some things that will help you, maybe bring up a few things. Now let's talk about what we know of the Crunkleton property update. There's a whole lot more than what we're going to show here, what I'll talk about. But these are just assessments of what a reasonable and prudent common sense person would come away with. They've done a lot of drilling on it, and the drilling stopped for a few weeks, so we're saying the initial drilling core samples have been completed. And that would be enough for them to go back and make a report and then submit the report to the buyers, which I believe is Heidelberg Mineral, that mining company. It used to be Hansen in this area, but they bought out Hansen. It's a German foreign, multi-billion-dollar mining corporation. They drill and have quarries all over the world. So they're very adept at this. So we listened to the drilling. First they came in and cleared some roads for the drilling trucks to come in. Then they drilled for about 2-3 weeks. Then it stopped. So then the next thing we hear, the property has been put under contract, pending. So that would be just an indication that the report was favorable enough to continue, because had the report been adverse, they wouldn't pursue this property. And the real estate contracts can vary, but when you see pending or active, it means contingent upon something. So they're gonna probably offer to buy this for some price, but it's contingent upon that there was enough rock in this property to do what they want to do, make it feasible to put a quarry here. And the second one would generally be that you have to get a rezoning for them to bring the quarry here, because they would not want to buy it without a rezoning. And then there may be another one if there's an environmental impact assessment or something that they would want to make sure they passed before they bought it, and then maybe EPD or the Corps of Engineers says no to it. So those are like under contract with some contingencies. Right after that, about a week or so later, I get some information calls where surveyors were coming out and marking the property. And I live right next to it, so I went and looked, and sure enough, they had marked our property line. So that, and the last one is a good indicator that the Heidelberg representative for the purchase is on the ground here somewhere. He's operating, he's communicating, he or she, and they're doing a good job for their boss. They're property acquisition people, and I'm sure they do this for a living, so they're doing a good job at trying to keep it quiet and still get their, their objectives met. So the next one is, down, our county commissioners and our county staff. This is what I know, and now it may not be all correct or current. I'll say it's correct as I know it, but maybe not all current. But apparently most, if not all of, our commissioners, our board of commissioners, not the planning commissioners, we have a group of planning commissioners, and then we have a separate group of board of commissioners. The board of commissioners are the ones that makes the decision on anything that we have come before them, anything that's submitted. The planning commission will review it and do the same thing, but they come up with a recommendation. They look at the same things that the board of commissioners will do, and they make a recommendation, and then it goes with what they input up to the board, and the board can look at it and not necessarily agree with what they did, and they can vote with them, or they could vote the opposite way. That's just the system we have. But we have a thing called the Georgia Open Meetings Laws, and it's sometimes called the Sunshine Law. And this is a law that the state assembly has put in to kind of give guidance to cities, and counties, and towns on how they conduct business when it comes to like rezonings and other things like that. And so they can't cover every possible scenario, so they say three, or let me back up. They say a quorum of elected officials cannot meet with another interested party of a piece of business or something that's coming in front of them. In Stevens County, because we have the 5 commissioners, a quorum is 3. And a quorum would be the amount of people you need if they had that number vote, whatever's in front of them would pass or fail. So that's the limit of it. So I don't believe our commissioners met in a quorum. That's clearly a violation. But if they met independent, 1 this morning, 2 at lunch, 1 tomorrow, well, they didn't violate the letter of the law, but they definitely violated the spirit of the law. Because if it's wrong for 3 of you being whoever's on the board of any place, to meet with an applicant and have a private conversation that nobody's aware of, how it went, was anything discussed, offered that might sway you to vote one way or to get a wink and a nod? We don't know. It wasn't in the public. And so that's the reason that we do everything in the public. So nobody, as I know, has violated the actual law, but they really did violate because they break the public trust. If we're looking at them, they're our representatives, and with our representative form of government, we don't vote on everything. We look at a candidate and he or she says, I believe this way, this way. It's kind of like the way you might believe, and then you trust that person to go in, because you don't want to come down these meetings every month. So you trust them to represent you. And so they should not engage outside of the public view. It's just like if you go to if you have a trial, you don't get to go meet with the judge before the trial. You know, your staff, your attorney but you don't get to go meet with the decision maker. And so that's where we are. It's just a point that I wanted to bring up with, it's water under the bridge. We can't change anything that's been said. We don't know what's been said. You know, it's like when you watch trials on TV and one pretty slick attorney goes up and he says, well, this guy's on trial, and the other guy jumps up and says, but Your Honor, he's had 5 convictions already in the last 3 years, and then he gets interrupted and the judge tells the jury, disregard that. But it's in your brain. You can't disregard it. You can't pull it out, and we can't pull out whatever was said before. We just hope that it doesn't affect the decision. Okay, I'm going to move on to statements that we get that come out of the media that come from the county staff. Now, my experience is whenever you talk to a county commissioner or a city council person or somebody on the staff in the government, and you ask them a question, they'll always answer honestly your question. They generally don't offer any more. But I've never had anybody mislead or do anything improper like that. But the problem is, if you're not familiar with the way the conversation goes, you can misunderstand what's happening. And so last week, actually I met with Chris Hamilton, our county administrator. He's very helpful. He explained everything that I asked about. He provided the paperwork for me. And then as I was leaving, he said, well, Richard, we haven't received anything. No application, nothing. And I understood that because I'm kind of familiar with the process. And that application comes at the very last when they bring in the paperwork. So I didn't think anything about it. But then a similar thing came out in the paper and in WNEG. And the next day a lady called me and she said, hey, I live over here on Highway 123 and I would like to get involved and resist this rezoning for a quarry. And we got to talking, and she says, well, but I read where, you know, it's nothing on it, so it's not coming. It's like maybe it was a rumor, maybe it was inaccurate. So she, because she's not familiar with it, she kind of got off track. So we don't want our people to get off track. We want open communication that kind of tells a more complete story. You know, like when you go on stand and you get sworn in, you raise your hand, put your hand in the Bible, and they say, you swear to tell the truth? Well, you get the truth when you talk to these people. The next thing they a lot of times say, the whole truth. The whole truth is what we need. And I always thought that's kind of a weird, why are they saying that thing? You already say the truth. But you can give the truth if you don't give everything. It doesn't portray the accurate thing. So and that comes from counties. It comes when you work with the state offices. That's just the way they do it. And they understand the system, but we don't. So when you're talking and you're hearing stuff, just kind of question it. Just ask around, see if there's a little more to the story. Because the last bullet is our relationship with our county commissioners, in this case, and our staff, is they are not our enemy. They work for us. We hired them. They're to do the job, and our responsibility is to get involved and see how they do the job. But we don't need to attack them. We don't need to attack the Crumpletons because it's their property and they would like to sell it and make money. But we don't need to attack anybody. We just have to work within the system so that it doesn't fit here. And if all the steps are looked at like a reasonable board would, it can't reasonably pass. So now we're going to talk about the rezoning, how it should go. Now this is just a common rezoning. We might have 1 or 2 different little steps in here, but this is a general format. There is a pre-application meeting, okay? Then we get to the application, gets submitted. Then the staff reviews it, and the planning commission has a hearing, and a public hearing. Then the board of commissioners, usually a month or so later, has a public hearing. and then the Board of Commissioners makes a final decision. So what happens in the pre-application meeting, or the pre-application timeline, which is where we are today, the purpose of that meeting is so that the applicant or the prospective buyer can meet with the county planning staff to discuss all the issues and the procedures with applying, with the technical aspects of applying. So it is proper to meet with the staff and get everything done, because the staff are not decision makers. The staff works so everything goes correct for the meetings, and so that the applicant's aware of all the restrictions and they have a fair opportunity. So the outcome of this pre-application phase, the applicant gets guidance on the feasibility of this project and the requirements for the application here in Stevens County. But before, the next step is the actual submission of the application. But I want to back up because it's a big window from when you think you're going to go buy this property and want to do something until you submit the application. And all the things that any applicant will do, they will go through and make sure everything is accomplished that they need to know so that they can go to the public hearing and present their side. So they're not in a rush to do it, because once they submit this application, the timeline starts. And they better be prepared so that, because they can't stop it. It's out of their control at that point. So they're going to get all these meetings done, all that, the staff, all of this core sampling done, all these other feelers with EPD, they might be talking to them, they might be talking to the Corps of Engineers, all before so they can make a big decision. Sometimes people will pull out because in the Planning Commission, or in the pre-application, the county staff can tell the Heidelberg, you could say, you want a rezone, you're looking for a rezoning, you can look at this future land use map that the county says this is the way they want this area to grow, and it's not consistent with what you want to do. So it is a big hurdle for them to go over. So sometimes when it all looks too bad, they might pull out. But with a multi-billion-dollar company, their pockets are deep, and these kind of preliminary expenses is just their normal operating costs, just like if you advertise, you got a car dealership, you would advertise. So that's how they get to where they're now applying for the application. He generally has to submit maybe a survey, an application fee, some more documentation that the county is going to request, maybe a letter of intent, and a proposal or some drawings. And then the staff will do like a cross-check on the land use plan and let them know, is this consistent with it or not? Now this land use plan or comprehensive plan is a very important tool. And what it governs, it's dictated by the state of Georgia. And they tell all people, all counties and towns, and they say, you have to put a comprehensive, most places it's called comprehensive land use plan and map. And the purpose is, the leaders in the county get together, they need to do it every 5 years, and sometimes sooner if you're in a county or a town that's growing very fast and things are changing. But ours is on a 5-year cycle. So then they look at everything, and in some places it gets down to the individual plat. And they look at the plats, and those leaders decide whether this plat, it's currently agricultural, but we'd like this area to go office institutional or commercial or whatever. And they post it, and they discuss it, and then when I walk in the door and I want to put my shop in here on a piece of property, and I drop my application in, they're going to look at what I want to do, and one of the first things they're going to pull that map up and say, is it consistent with where the leadership in the county said they wanted this area of the county to go? And so that tool, and if it's not, it becomes a bigger hurdle to overcome, because you're not going where the town would like you to go, where the county would like you to go. And they'll look at all these parcels. So like if you look over here and you get by the high school, let's say there's 20 acres at the high school, they're not going to address that. It's already been developed, it'll probably be there 50 years. But if there's a 10-acre tract next to it and it's open, they'll have something overlaid over that for the future, for development, how they would like to see it go. And so that's the purpose of that. And so they review that, and then they notify the applicant whether he's kind of in the track or not. And the staff will then make a recommendation. And they prepare a report, and sometimes this report is usually available to the public. But they'll prepare a report, and it goes to the Planning Commission to help them. Because once he submits the application, that timeline I was telling you about starts. And the first thing is like a notice to the public of an upcoming public meeting. And they have to advertise it. You advertise it in your public legal organ. In this case, it's the Toccoa record. So the notice will go in there, and then you have it. It has to be at least 15 days once they post it before. Oh gosh, hold on a second. That's my kid's school, my grandkid's school automatic dialing thing. But so they're gonna. Let me make sure this thing don't come on again. Okay. All right. So they're going to tell you there's an upcoming meeting. You have to have at least 15 days notice. They also have to post some signage along the property so that you see the sign, you can pull over and take a look at it if you don't see it in the paper. The paper generally doesn't give you a lot of detail. It just says notice of a certain property to be rezoned, requested to be rezoned maybe from agricultural intensive to commercial something or another. And that's your notice. So you just have to kind of keep up with it. So then it goes to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission or a group of volunteers, as far as I know, I don't think they get paid, but they're volunteers. They do a good job on their own time for us, and they do the initial review. The same process that the board is going to do. They look at the maps, they look at the current uses, they look at the character of this area of the county that they want to do, and then they open it to a public meeting, and the applicant side gets their opportunity to address the Planning Commission, why they want to put it here and all these reasons, how great a neighbor, they're going to be a corporate neighbor and they're going to do this and that and everything. And then there'll be an opportunity for the people that are in opposition to speak. And then you would, if you're in opposition, then you'd go up and say, well, I'm concerned about this, or air, or the water, or the roads, or the cost, or the noise, or whatever. You'll have your opportunity to speak. And then at some point, they close it. And generally that night, the Planning Commission will make a decision. Their decision is a recommendation. They make the decision usually three choices: to approve it with conditions of some sort, or to deny it. That's generally how it works. So then they turn the paperwork back in, it goes back to the staff, they let the county commissioners know. Generally the next month, you're on the schedule to do the same process with the county board of commissioners. Now, I think our board generally meets most months, 2 times a month, and they'll do rezoning type business one of those times a month. But because of this time of the year, if it happens to go through a cycle, if it gets into December, they're only going to meet 1 time in December, whether it's their normal time to do zonings or not. So we'll look to that. They probably only have 1 meeting. So if this paperwork was dropped, if I understand the timeline, if it was dropped before the 10th of October, say it was dropped to the county on the 5th of October, then we could expect to see it go to the Planning Commission for the November meeting. And if they finished it, then we could expect to see it in December, go to the board. So that's kind of how that works. So we've gone through the Planning Commission and now the County Commission. Now the County Commission, kind of Board of Commissioners, they may make a decision usually that night, but if they need to, for some reason, push it back a little bit, they can, within reason. I think there's some limits on it. They want to find some more facts. They may not hold another public hearing. They have a requirement to do it, and they have met that requirement. So let's say there's a study by EPD or the Corps or something that says you shouldn't make this decision until this other outside agency makes the decision, then we might have a meeting in December, on this example, and you don't get a final decision until some of these reports come in. If there's nothing to wait for, then they probably would, I would assume, make a decision that night. However, it's the same three ways: generally approved with certain conditions, or denied. If it's denied, most places, the applicant can't bring it back in front of the county again, in this case, for 6 months. Some places it's 12 months. So if it failed, they couldn't just come back in 3 or 4 months and do some adjustments and submit it. There is a timeline before they can come back in. And if it is approved, then it becomes, they issue an ordinance to it, and it actually, gets rezoned, it gets a new category. And a very important thing about rezoning, whatever category of your property is zoned, that's your right. You have a right to do almost whatever is already authorized in the category of your zoning. Okay, so they can't stop you when you have to comply with plans and fees and setbacks, but if it's in your uses of stuff, you generally have a right to get it done. But if it's not, then you have to go through this process to try to change it to what you want to do. And so everybody has the opportunity to submit a request. There's no requirement that you get it. But should anybody get it and they get it rezoned to the new one, now they have all rights to do everything in that category. And I've never heard of anybody been able to take those rights back, because they're very serious on property rights, and that's part of it. They depend on your county or town, city leaders to do it right, and then whatever, if they grant it, then those people have it. So that's kind of what we know about the property, what we know about the communication, how people communicate. Sometimes we got to be clear so we don't misunderstand stuff. We don't want to be hateful to anybody. This is probably a short duration, sometimes 2 months, 3 months. So we'll be looking for volunteers. And we need volunteers at all levels, from just making phone calls or handing out flyers, or maybe if it ever gets to asking for a petition. Or if you're a technical person and you know how to set up a website, or if you've worked as a geologist or anything in this area, you could help us, work through this process. Or if you're an attorney with this kind of background, it would be good to have you help. Or if you did this for your living, and you built or you worked somewhere, or you were the point person for a big company like this, and you have, gone through 30, 40 of these processes, and you're an expert. Maybe you need to come and look about, see if you want to, if you'd be considering, if you could take over and lead this thing, because we want the best people to get our opportunity to get this done the right way. So whoever it is, that would be great. That's what we would like to do. And the last thing, which everybody hates to talk about, is the money. We don't have any money, but we could use a little bit of money. And I mean, as little as I could ever imagine. I think money to purchase some signage to put out around the town, and maybe to buy some paper to print flyers or things like that. And that's about it. We don't need a lot of money. It's not fair to ask 1 or 2 people to keep, digging in their pocket. So if you have a little ability to help in that area, that's what we're asking for. Whether it's just a labor input, or if you could do a little financial help, or anything like that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I would like to take this opportunity. If you guys have some questions, we'll try to answer some questions. And then well, we're doing pretty good on time.
We have forms in the back on the clipboards.
Microphone.
Can you hear me?
Now we did.
Good. In the very back, there are clipboards and the wonderful volunteers on the very back desk. Volunteers, wave your hands. They're the ladies that checked you in. I don't know how they got so many of you all in here that quickly, but there are clipboards in the back. If you wouldn't mind taking a look at those and seeing how you can help us, we would truly appreciate it. I think our spouses are kind of getting tired of being our support staff. Also, we do have, if we're out of forms, we will get a blank piece of paper. I promise you, if you put your name and number down, we will be in touch. Okay?
Also, I've got a couple more little points I forgot to talk about. A couple of the big concerns, of course, besides property values being lost and the health issues with bad air affecting people with respiratory ailments, asthma, COPD, and such like that. It's a silica dust as part of a byproduct of this operation. So I put some measurements from this blue dot is right where the Quarry property is. Some of it is actually closer. But to the high school, it's 2.16 miles. We'll call it 2.2 miles. So that dust is, everybody says it's understood at least 5 miles or maybe more. Now again, the experts will come in from the applicant and say, well, we have all this contained, we have the water contained, we have this and that. But just remember, wasn't long ago, we had some trees on fire in Canada. And 1,500, 1,800 miles later, we got smoke in our town. We have smoke a lot from North Carolina. So these kids that are out in the field at the high school exercising, playing ball, the band, whatever they're doing, if the wind is blowing that way, it doesn't take anything to get to their playground. There's even a school on Fernside, it's about a mile, where little children and toddlers, and it's an outside experience where they go out in the garden and do this stuff, right? So that's one of the issues. And then over here, here's another example. The property's highlighted. If you go from the western boundary to the middle of the airport we have, it's only 1 mile. It's 1 mile. So on your table, you'll see just kind of a basic circle of a 5-mile circle. And that's where, if the wind's blowing that way, you might be in the fallout of the dust. This chart, and there's one on some of your tables, it shows existing platting from the county office. This large center, in the center, this very large, that's the 500, I call it 500 acre tract for the Crunkletons. But you can see all these little plants, like a Wesley Circle, that's 300 and some yards from it. And everybody's well within a mile footprint of this. These other large openings, they're actually residential. Most of them where people have the house or something already in it, and they just bought a larger tract. And then over this one is a little broader view, and you can see how much more everybody lives in here, but just one large open space, which is the Crunkleton property. There's a yellow highlight in this picture. That's the city of Toccoa. So the city of Toccoa comes right up to it. And in fact, I think it borders it over where that sewage lagoon pond is off of 123. I think they actually join. So you can see the compatibility for this very intensive use. Now we call it here in Stevens County something like commercial intensive, something like that. But most people refer to it like this. They would call this use heavy industrial. Chicken rendering plant, asphalt making plant, concrete plant, a battery plant, all that is heavy industrial type use. And what planners and what the state likes people to do is you're in a category that, let's say this over here is the heavy industrial, this kind of rock quarry use. And it's actually a mine, comes under mining operations under the state of Georgia. And so we got these like uses here. The next one will be a light industrial, less intensive use, like warehousing, light small production, less of an impact. The next one would be some kind of commercial. varying levels of commercial, and you go from higher intensive commercial to lower commercial. Then the next one, less of a footprint, is called office institutional. Your schools, your churches, your parks, that big office space, it gets quieter and quieter as you go down. The next level is residential. First a multifamily, then the final, most least impactful quiet category, single family residential. So when you look at this stuff, you're supposed to say, well, sometimes we'll have a heavy industrial, and we would like to keep it next to another heavy industrial or next to a light industrial. And sometimes it's not possible, and you get to a higher end commercial, and because you have to transition somewhere. You have to transition. Everybody has to have a place to do their business. You can't block people out. But we don't put something that's so heavy on a footprint next to something so light. That just kind of violates it. So that's part of the decision process. And this picture is worth more than you could describe in writing or anything, because you can just see this is all single-family developed homes out here. And so you got the water issues. This property sits on a hill on Brookdale. It's a field elevation of 1,200 feet above sea level. All the land, if I'm on this high ground right here on Brookdale, I'm on Brookdale right here. I'm at 1,020 feet. All the property goes downhill in this direction to the north. Okay? All the drainage, everything, there's a big ridge line in the middle of this property. The water runs over this branch, and there's a creek going this way. The other side, it runs into this branch, and the creek goes that way. Both of those creeks hit Ward Creek. And Ward Creek is on their property, and it runs from there 2 miles, 2.1, to Lake Hartwell, south of Broken Bridges. Now, as the creek meanders, it's probably 2 1/4, 2 3/8 miles. But if it's a little over 2 miles, if the flow of the creek is 1 mile an hour, and something gets in the water, well, 2 to 3 hours, it's going to be in the lake. Okay, and if it's a storm, it's like a tropical storm, drops 5, 6 inches of rain in here, it's going to be down there pretty fast. So we got concerns on the water, what it does to the aquatic and the wildlife in the water, what it does to Lake Hartwell. The blasting will change it, what it does to the wildlife. These are all areas that we're going to ask people to consider. Your homes, your homes, if you live in this vicinity, close to, and you have a well, you can have your well fractured where your water supplies your well, and then it moves in another direction, and your well goes dry. It does happen. Doesn't happen to everybody, but it does happen. And then when that happens, the quarry's not going to drill you another well. And when your foundation cracks or your sheetrock cracks in your house, they're not going to repair your house. They have done this for 50, 60 years, and they have a legal staff that would fill up half of this room to take these same kind of issues that they do over and over, and they just won't do it. And so you got that. You have the health issues. We have the water. We already talked about the wind and the silica dust. Your property values. Let's say you were valued at X, say $300,000 on your house. It's going to be something less than that. Don't know what it is, but it will be less. They're going to devalue your property. But your taxes aren't going to go down because your assessment isn't going to go down, but the marketplace is going to devalue your property. More important, the marketplace is going to not want to come to where you're trying to sell your house. We call it curb appealing. When you drive through and all of a sudden this place looks a little better, and you don't know why, what it is, but you like this street or this neighborhood. It might be the trees, it might be the setbacks, it might be something, but you like it. And then you go to the next little subdivision, looking around, and everything looked good, and you get to the house, and something isn't, the curb appeal isn't there, and you tell the realtor, we don't need to stop, just keep going. That's curb appeal, for you or against you. This comes here, you'll have no curb appeal to sell your property, whether it's a house or whether it's land or anything.